Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 181 of Just the Zoo of Us. This week I spoke with the president and CEO of the Texas State Aquarium about their work rescuing and rehabilitating loggerhead turtles and other marine wildlife. We discussed the challenges faced by sea turtles in a changing world, the human work that goes into saving them, and the magic of connecting with another species. Just the Zoo of Us presents Loggerhead Turtles with Jesse Gilbert. Hello, friends. This is Ellen Weatherford with Just the Zoo of Us, your favorite animal review podcast. And this week, I'm really excited to be talking to a brand new friend. This is Jesse Gilbert. Say hi, Jesse.
Hi, Ellen. How are you? Hi, everyone. It's good to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm excited to talk about your work with a really cool animal that I honestly don't know a ton about. So I'm looking forward to learning. But before we talk about our cool animal friend today, I would like to get to know you a little bit. What got you into marine biology?
Yeah, it was an interesting road. I actually grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, so a landlocked state.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
When I think marine biology, I think Tulsa, Oklahoma.
It screams marine science, that it does. And so I was really fortunate. I grew up in Tulsa, and Tulsa has a fantastic zoo. And my parents would take us to the zoo a lot growing up, and just kind of got into animals. I think it was my introduction into the wildlife. And from there, I think like probably a lot of people, I made my first trip to SeaWorld and saw orcas and thought that was incredible. I probably more on the training side of things. But as I grew a little bit older, knew that I was kind of probably headed down the marine science road, and was very fortunate to get an internship at the Tulsa Zoo. They had a marine aquarium department there. And that was my first internship, my first job as a zookeeper. And then was really fortunate to find an aquarium biologist job here at the Texas State Aquarium and moved to Texas and have been here ever since. So yeah, it was an interesting road, and started in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But I think because it was in Tulsa, what was interesting was it was really kind of the drive to get me to the coast. I think had I grown up on the coast, I still probably would have been into marine science, but might not have found Corpus Christi in the Texas State Aquarium. So it all worked out really well, and here we are 25, 30 years later.
You made it home.
Yeah. No, Texas is home now. I got here as quick as I could, as they say.
And, I haven't mentioned this yet, but you are the president and CEO of the Texas State Aquarium in Corpus Christi, Texas, which, by the way, I didn't know off the top of my head where Corpus Christi was, so I did look it up, and it is on the coast of Texas, which makes sense.
Yeah. Corpus Christi's it's a kind of a medium-sized city on the South Texas coast, so we're right between Houston and the border with Mexico, and so it's a community of about 350, 400,000 people. What's interesting about it, and the reason I've just really grown to appreciate being in Corpus Christi, and we call it the Coastal Bend, is there's a lot of really unique marine life that calls this area and this habitat home. And so with the aquarium and the Aquarium's Wildlife Rescue Program, it's been an opportunity to work with wildlife and truly save endangered species because this is just where they live. It is a really dynamic marine habitat. So it's a great place to live. People are nice, but it is, from a marine biology standpoint, this is a really cool place.
Yeah. Are the types of wildlife in the Corpus Christi area, like along that coast, are those the types of animals that you could see at the aquarium?
Absolutely. So the aquarium is primarily focused on the Gulf of Mexico and now the Caribbean Sea. So we've got a really nice Caribbean exhibit where you can look at jungles and birds and kind of some terrestrial stuff as well as the marine. But what's really interesting is our wildlife rescue program, and it's being able to tell the story about wildlife conservation and sea turtles, which we work a lot with. They're endangered species. This is where Kemp's Ridley sea turtles all are hatched, right in South Texas or northern Mexico. This is the only place in the world where they're from. And so you've got this, the most endangered species of sea turtle in the world. It nests right here in South Texas and northern Mexico. You've got the other species of turtle that are here. We've got a wide range of marine mammals that live in this area. We're starting to see more manatees as the manatee habitat challenges have grown in Florida. Manatees are searching for more food. And so this year we saw about 5 or 6 here in Corpus Christi.
That's exciting.
It is, yeah. And we're also the birdiest city in the country. We are
birdiest.
The birdiest city in the country. We're the stopover for the Atlantic Flyway. So as the birds are making their migration north or south, depending on the season, Corpus Christi is pretty much the stopping point for that. And that'll actually happen in April. Our rescue program sees a lot of birds through those migration periods because they get tired and it's a long trip. They're making quite the trek. So you can come to the aquarium, you can see all of that wildlife, you can see the fish, the sharks, but then you also can soon be able to visit our rescue center and you'll actually be able to see all of the work that goes on to save wildlife at one of the busiest rescue programs in the country.
Wow. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And you mentioned, that you have a lot of turtles in your area, turtles that hatch along the coast. And that is the animal that we're focusing on today, the animal we're going to take a look at. With your wildlife rescue program, do you find yourselves taking in a lot of loggerheads?
We do. So we had a really interesting event. We were activated for a loggerhead sea turtle emergency this summer. Loggerhead sea turtles are big animals. The animals that we have are about 150 to 200 pounds. These are really, really large turtles, and they were stranding on the beaches. We were just finding them on the beaches, and it was literally just here in the Corpus Christi area, nowhere else in the Gulf of Mexico. It occasionally happens in other places, but this summer it was just here. Was
this adult sea turtles?
These are adult turtles, and they're big, and they don't feel well. When you don't feel well, you're kind of cranky, and we would bring them in. They would see the veterinarians. They would get all of the medical workups, and really couldn't find what was going on. And still to this day, really aren't sure what it is. We know that they're coming in pretty skinny. They're underweight. Their blood values indicate that they're dehydrated, and really kind of leads back to they're probably just not consuming enough food. And so we were activated to put all of our emergency rescue operations into place. So we are the leading coastal wildlife rescue program in the country, and we can hold up to about 3,000 sea turtles at one time. So it's a big number. The most we've ever had at one time was about 1,500 green sea turtles during Winter Storm Uri. That was the winter storm that came through Texas in 2021. And like all Texans, turtles don't like snow and ice. And so they couldn't handle it. And so we had 1,500 turtles here during Winter Storm Uri. So we can hold a lot of turtles. And so this loggerhead scenario starts to kind of take place in April, May of this past year. And the other challenging thing about loggerheads is they don't like other loggerheads.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you can't rehabilitate them in the same space. You'll have
bubble
issues. Yeah, you'll have other issues on your hands very quickly. So we had to take all these turtles. We had to develop a way that we could safely hold them. We could manage the seawater that the animals live in and make sure that it's healthy water. Our kind of motto here is that the water the animals are living in isn't healthy. The animals can't be. That just doesn't seem to work itself out. And so we put this incredible system into place. The team at the aquarium reverse engineered an entire system that's made to actually preserve buildings during floods. Re-engineered that, reverse engineered that, came up with this incredible system, and we were able to recover these loggerhead sea turtles. They're slowly being released. You get like 1 or 2 that are good to go every couple of weeks after they see the veterinarians, and so we still have a couple of them. But yeah, it's we didn't get a lot of loggerheads until this year, but it's been a fascinating look at the species as a whole and what. You've got this pocket of a population in South Texas, and how is that different from the animals that live in maybe Florida? And then we were also able to tag some of the individuals that were released from the rescue center to learn about, what do they do and how do they move through the habitat during the fall and winter. And given that we've had some interesting winter, it's been some fascinating data. So yeah, we've seen our share of loggerheads now.
You're kind of a loggerhead city over there, the capital of loggerheads.
That is what it looks like. We went through a sea turtle cold stunning event literally on Christmas Day. And so that's when the weather turns too cold and the sea turtles get hypothermic and they stun. And again, endangered species, you bring them in, you warm them up. And so we were working, that was green sea turtles. So we were working with the green sea turtles, and we had some people that had come to help us from some of our federal partners at NOAA. And they had heard about the loggerheads, but hadn't seen it. And it was exactly what you said. It was like they walked up and they go, it's like a city. It's just a city of turtles. And so I got into marine science really around corals, and now my life is marine sea turtles.
What a life, though, because I feel like sea turtles are such a charismatic little sea creature. Like, if somebody is going to be really into a sea creature, it's probably going to be a sea turtle because they're just so cute.
They are, and that's, I think, what is great about them is it's a powerful storyteller. Sea turtles are great storytellers, and people connect with them because they are charismatic, they are cute. Turtles, and sometimes you don't think about it being cute, and you get these hatchlings in, and you'll take the most seasoned zoo professional and it will melt them. So no, they're charismatic. They have personalities. Each species has some difference to it. What you would think works for green sea turtles might not work for loggerheads, might not work for kimps, or at least, but they're fascinating animals, absolutely fascinating.
For people who aren't very familiar with what a loggerhead is, this is a big turtle, a big old turtle with big old flippers. You mentioned earlier that it looked like they weren't getting enough food.
Right.
What do they eat?
So loggerheads are more scavengers. And like you said, they're big animals, 150, 200 pounds as adults. They have massive heads and big mouths, and they are made to crush. And so a lot of what they'll eat are crabs, hard animals that live on the bottom of the ocean. They're opportunistic. I'm sure if there was a fish that wasn't doing too well, a loggerhead would absolutely take that opportunity. But they eat a lot of crustaceans, a lot of invertebrates, but mostly protein. It's unlike their cousins, the green sea turtles, and they get their name because when they get to adults, they're completely herbivorous. So they only eat algae and different grasses in the ocean. So loggerheads are a little bit different, that they just continue to eat seafood, the things that we all enjoy, bivalves, clams, mussels, anything like that. And sea urchins, that's another big part of their diet here locally. And so when you get these animals into the rescue scenario and they're stranding and they're not eating enough food, it ultimately leads to, what does the population of the food look like? What is the capacity of that ecosystem? And so those are questions that we're asking now. And I think that's, going back to marine biology, that's the fun part, is there's a lot of questions out there and you just have to play detective and try to solve them. So yeah, loggerheads eat a little bit of everything. Here at the aquarium, once they're in the rescue program, we typically try to give them a little bit more high calorie food to get them bulked up. And so they'll eat some high caloric, high quality seafood. I think they've had a little bit of salmon. And so, some of these fish that we would think are a little bit fattier, they get invertebrates. They also get a turtle specific jello. So we make a jello that's specific for turtles. So they'll get that. And they also get all their vitamins and minerals. And then they get seen by the veterinarian every 2 weeks.
Salmon and jello. They're living the high life.
They are living. I'll tell you what, they are. I was over there during the cold stunning event around Christmas, and the loggerheads had been here for a bit of time. And so we have them on a very specific photo period. So we want to mimic what they would see in the wild, because they're going to go back to the wild. The plan, these animals will be released. And so we turn on the lights when the sun rises and we turn off the lights when the sun sets, so that we can keep them in that rhythm. And so what's interesting, I go over there first thing in the morning, I turn on the lights. This is a huge warehouse, about 26,000 square feet. I mean, this is a massive, massive space. You have all these turtles, and I walk by, and the first thing I always do is check to make sure everybody's doing okay. How does the water look? Has anybody, gotten in with somebody else overnight? Luckily, that doesn't happen. But, doing a walkthrough, and I realize they're all asleep, and none of them are moving. And it's cold. It's ice cold in Corpus Christi, which is unusual for us. And so I kind of poke them. And then I realize that about 15, 20, 30 minutes after I turn on the lights, they start to stir. They start to move around. They wake up. And then they get very demanding for their jello and salmon. And then the team will come in, and the nutritionist will come in, and they'll feed them, and they'll eat it all, and they'll go right back to sleep. So they're very efficient at what they do.
They were hangry.
They were hangry. That is exactly what it is. And you come in, they wake up when they want to. It's kind of like teenagers. They wake up when they want to. They wake up, they eat, and they go right back to bed.
Honestly, listen, if I could, I would.
Why wouldn't you, right? Yeah.
That sounds ideal. This sounds amazing.
Yep. No, it's interesting to kind of see them in that perspective. And, in the ocean, that can be a dangerous thing to do. You go to sleep and sharks and other predators can come by. So it's fascinating to watch these somewhat prehistoric animals that have been around for, as long as dinosaurs, kind of how they work and how they have evolved.
Yeah. So, since you mentioned that this can be kind of risky because it puts them at the risk of being chomped on by something swimming by, but also that this is an energetic budget that they're working on. So they kind of have to make that call between do I accept the risk of falling asleep so that I can conserve the energy I need? If this is your first time listening to this podcast, what we do is we review animals by rating them out of 10 in the categories of effectiveness, ingenuity, and aesthetics. So first up is effectiveness. This is physical adaptations. So things that are built into the animal's body that let them do a good job of the things they're trying to do. So things that either help them catch their prey, things that help them not become prey themselves, things that protect them, anything that is kind of like a tool they have in their belt that helps them survive, thrive, make it to the next generation.
Sure.
What do you give loggerheads out of 10 for effectiveness?
I would say it's a high 8, 9, somewhere in that neighborhood. When you look at the shell and the protectiveness that a turtle shell brings to it.
Yeah, it's a tank.
Yeah, they are. And it's a challenge sometimes in the rehabilitation setting because if you need to do surgery, you can't even get through the shell. I mean, it really is an armor plate. That's exactly what it is. And so they're protected in that sense and, are effective. And not only does that protect them from things like sharks, but also human activities. Sometimes a turtle might be swimming by and a boat hits it. And so those shells, the carapace, as we call it, and the underside, the plastron, are protective barriers for that. And then I would say that mouth. And we're aware of it because when they're hangry, you've just got to be aware of where that mouth is. I mean, it could take my whole hand and could easily take off fingers if they tried. And so when you think about what they eat in the Gulf of Mexico, clams, hard-shelled invertebrates, they can just crush those hard shells. What might be difficult for us to do as humans, a loggerhead can do very, very, very effectively.
So our hand is like nothing to them.
Nothing at all.
They're like, you got your hard parts on the inside, weak.
Yeah, nothing at all. We've actually, sometimes when we get them in, depending on what we see on x-rays, we'll actually take an endoscope and we'll go down their throat into their stomach to see what's going on when they're kind of under anesthesia. And we'll put a bite guard in place. And we've actually had loggerheads bite through bite guards. And so it is amazing the power of a full-size loggerhead jaw. You come away with a lot of respect. It's pretty crazy.
People can sometimes underestimate the ferocity of turtles, but from where I am, where we've got snapping turtles and alligator snapping turtles, there are some turtles you don't want to, I understand that a lot of people, you stop in the road, you see a turtle in the road, you're like, I'm going to go help that turtle cross the road. You get out, you walk up. If you look out and you see that thing as a snapping turtle, they've got it. You just get back in your car.
Well, and you bring up alligator snapping turtles. That's what a loggerhead head looks like, just much bigger. But it's the same jaw structure. It's the same beak look. And so, if you've ever encountered an alligator snapping turtle, think of something much, much bigger, and that's kind of a loggerhead. So, you in the rehabilitation setting, we want to help them, but you have to be very mindful of where that mouth is.
You mentioned that they're eating just kind of a lot of different stuff that they find in the ocean. And that reminds me of kind of an iconic image that I think a lot of people would probably recognize of the 6-pack soda can plastic rings and always being told to, cut them open because of the risk to sea turtles. Is that a myth or is that true?
No, it's very true. I would say, aside from these events where you have kind of these mass strandings like the loggerheads or the cold stunnings, what we typically find for our normal patients, our normal sea turtle patients, is entanglement. And typically it's entanglement in some level of plastic. So it could be, soda can rings like you're talking about. And same thing, we would advocate you cut those rings before you dispose of them. You see a lot down here, and similar in Florida, where it's a fishing line that hasn't been disposed of properly. And so somebody's out fishing, and they cut their line and they just leave it there, and that can entangle the animals. In fact, we had one of the cold stunned sea turtles that came in on Christmas had a hook trapped in its right shoulder, and the line was around its neck, and we were able to cut it off, and the animal's doing okay. But that entanglement in plastics, Coke can rings, fishing gear is a real hazard to not only marine turtles, but any other sea life. But that's probably where we see the most impact.
I did also want to ask, because something that a lot of people might associate with turtles, not necessarily sea turtles, but maybe sea turtles, is being slow. Like you think turtles, you think like this is a slow moving, pretty chill, not exactly booking it.
Yeah.
Are loggerheads slow?
Loggerheads are not slow. So I think that's one of the things that I had to get used to when I moved to the coast. And, I worked at the Tulsa Zoo and was exposed to alligator snapping turtles and snapping turtles, red-eared sliders. And, when they're on land, they're slow. I will tell you, marine turtles in water will outswim any of our staff. And we watch it a lot because of the rescue program. So we had these 300 turtles over Christmas for the cold stunning. We had to catch them to put them back into the Gulf of Mexico. And it's always interesting to watch animal professionals get in there with all these sea turtles. And like you said, you think of turtles, you think of slow. Right. And when they're healthy and they're ready, they will outswim any of us. So it really becomes quite the event to catch that many sea turtles. So yeah, on land, absolutely. Once they're in the ocean, all bets are off. I would pick a turtle any day.
I mean, it's that old adage, you wouldn't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
Yeah.
Don't judge the turtles by how they flop around on land.
Yeah. They're particularly sea turtles. They are not graceful on land, but boy, you put them in water and they do what they were made to do. I mean,
it's their time to shine.
They can fly. Yep.
It does look like flying. Like when you see them swimming through the water, it has that same sort of graceful, like wing flapping motion. It looks like they're flying.
It does, and I always think back to kind of like Finding Nemo and Crush and Finding Nemo, the sea turtle. I mean, they really captured that. It is like flight. I mean, they flap their front flippers, their front legs. They use their rear legs more as kind of a rudder to steer like a ship would. So it's exactly what it looks like.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yep.
Hey there, we are going to take a quick break to hear from a couple of the other shows on the Maximum Fun Network. When we get back, we're going to rate ingenuity and aesthetics for loggerheads, so stick around.
I'm Jordan Morris.
And I'm Jesse Thorne.
On Jordan Jesse Go, we make pure, delightful nonsense.
We rope in awesome guests
and bring them down to our level.
We get stupid with Judy Greer.
My friend Molly and I call it having the space weirds.
Patton Oswalt.
Could I get a Balrog burger and some Aragorn fries? Thank you.
And Kumail Nanjiani.
I've come back with cat toothbrushes, which is impossible to use.
Come get stupider with us at MaximumFun.org.
Look, your podcast app's already open. Just pull it out. Give Jordan Jesse Go a try.
Being smart is hard. Be dumb instead.
Hi, I'm Hal Loveland.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
And we're the hosts of We Got This with Mark and Hal, the weekly show where we settle the debates that are most important to you.
That's right. What arguments are you and your friends having that you just can't settle?
Apples or oranges?
Marvel or DC?
Fork versus spoon?
Chocolate or vanilla?
Best bagel?
What's the best Disney song?
We Got This with Mark and Hal. Every week on Maximum Fun, we do the arguing so you don't have to.
Oh, all answers are final for all people for all time.
We got this.
And when I think about their, swimming abilities, I also think of their long distances that sea turtles travel, which makes me want to talk about ingenuity for the loggerhead. That's the next category we rate animals on, which is behavioral adaptations, things that they do, clever, maybe strategies they have, ways they solve problems they face. What do you give loggerheads out of 10 for ingenuity?
I think turtles, loggerheads in particular, I would say probably a good 8. There's certainly the migration patterns of turtles. And so turtles are cold-blooded. And that's kind of what gets them to trouble in winters in South Texas. So right now, today in Corpus Christi, I think the temperature is going to be about 80 degrees. And we're right in the middle of January. And so that's unusually warm. So these animals take the cues to start these migration processes based on water temperature drops. And so when we have a rather warm or mild winter, the cues aren't there. And so the animals might not seek out warmer water because they're already there. And then you get a really strong cold front like we had over Christmas and they get in trouble. But they have this amazing ability to migrate and, they'll come back. So the Kimsridleys, as a great example, they only nest here. So the Kimsridleys were hatched in South Texas, in northern Mexico, and they will return to the same beach where they were hatched. And just last week or 2 weeks ago, we were able to bring in Kimsridleys from Cape Cod. They got cold stunned in the Boston area, Cape Cod. Those animals were hatched in South Texas, northern Mexico. And so that's just an example of one migration patterns. We see loggerheads do it across the Gulf of Mexico and around the coast. So they have this incredible ability to navigate. And you think about how large the ocean is, how large the Gulf of Mexico is, and for a loggerhead to show back up on the same beach that it was born on 20 years earlier is pretty remarkable. I don't know if we can do it without GPS.
I couldn't. I can't get across my city without GPS.
Yeah. So, I mean, you think about it, they're using cues, and it's amazing what they can do. Yeah.
I was going to ask, is it that they're like, following currents, or are they using some sort of visual indicator of where they are? Like, how do they know?
They do follow currents. Some of the species do that, particularly the animals that are a little bit more oceanic or pelagic. They also, one of the issues we see with turtle nesting is if there's a lot of light pollution on the beach, it will confuse them. And I think a lot of that's because they're probably using some sort of guidance of how they get there with some of the light. And so during turtle nesting season, we try to minimize the amount of light pollution on the beach to not to confuse them to where to go. So they take different cues from all over to make sure they can end up back where they need to. But you think, just because the Kim's Ridley story is really current with us, to think about an animal that hatched in Mexico, made the trip around the Gulf, up the Eastern Seaboard, got caught in Cape Cod, got cold, it's coming back to Texas. That's a heck of a journey. Yeah.
And that also speaks to how fast they must be able to swim, because that is a lot of ground. I was about to say a lot of ground to cover. That's a lot of ocean to cover.
It is. Yeah, it's amazing. And they're resilient. They're built to move through it, and they've been around for as long as the dinosaurs. So they've done something right.
I did want to ask, from the perspective of having cared for these turtles at your facility, are there any sort of like behaviors that you've maybe had to express from them, like enrichment you've needed to give them, or accommodations you've needed to make for like certain behaviors that they've been doing?
Absolutely. So two stories on that. One is Kim's Ridley. So again, this is all of them hatch here. And so during nesting season, particularly around the hatching time, let's say midsummer or so, it's not unusual to have a handful of hatchlings that just wash back. And, these are small turtles that are maybe an inch, 2 inches. They're very, very small. At that life stage for Kim's Ridley, they find sargassum, which is a seaweed out in the Gulf of Mexico, and they live in these seaweed mats, and there's food there for them to eat, and they float along these seaweed mats. They float on the ocean surface, and so they're not diving yet for their food. They haven't dove. And so what's been interesting is as we get these young Kim's Ridleys into the rescue program, we have to teach them how to dive, because that's not an adaptation that they've yet had to acquire. And so, because all their food's brought to them, right? We at the rescue center, our rescue staff will bring them their morning meal, their breakfast. They'll bring them their dinner, and so they don't have to dive. So once we see them hit a certain age, what we actually start to do is we take them to very deep exhibits here at the aquarium. That's not necessarily part of the rescue center. And we won't give them their food at the surface. We'll actually start to offer their food at varying depths of water to make them figure out how to dive. If you want to eat, you're going to have to, it's a little bit tough. I mean, we don't let them starve, but we don't go all the way, down 20 feet immediately, but we'll start at, 12 inches, and they'll dive down for 12 inches, and we'll stay there for a couple of weeks, and then we'll go down 24 inches. And so you can watch these turtles do what they would naturally do in the wild, but you do have to modify that. If you just went to it, you said, I'm here in a rehabilitation setting, and I'm just going to continue to give this turtle the food, and then I go and I put it back out in the ocean, and it hasn't learned how to dive yet. That could be a hard lesson to learn. And so you provide that lesson for them, if you will. It takes a little extra time, but we know that we're getting them out probably a little bit more prepared to face the ocean than if we didn't teach them how to dive. So that's one. And then the other thing that we'll see, particularly with green sea turtles and the loggerheads, is that you mentioned efficiency, right? If somebody brought us our meals and we could just sleep and play all day, that's what we would do. And so turtles are no different. And what we've learned about them is they like to wedge themselves underwater. So they can hold their breath for long, long periods of time, sometimes a couple of hours. And so with the turtles that are not releasable, they come into the rescue program and their injuries are just too bad and we can't get them back out into the wild, we'll try to provide them a forever home here at the aquarium. And so when we have those turtles, we actually have to give them enrichment devices, but really it's so that they can wedge themselves like they would in the wild. So it's not unusual to come in and see a turtle in the morning because the lights have just come on, wedged under a rock in its cave and just kind of sitting there and doing fine. And then as it wakes up, it kind of comes to. So yeah, we have to be creative about how we work with them. And they're also, I think they get a bad rap. People probably don't think they're the smartest animals out there. And they'll get themselves in trouble because they'll go mess with anything. And so we really have to, particularly with the resident rescue turtles that can't be released, we really have to work with them to keep them active and give them things to interact with that's safe for them. So we have this at the Texas State Aquarium, a weird world where we've got some animals that will live their lives out here at the aquarium, and then we've also got these animals that we're trying to get back into the ocean. And so we take what we learn from the animals that live here at the aquarium, apply that to their oceanic counterparts, and hope that we can get more animals out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you want, right? Long term, if you're working on conserving the species in the wild, you want to try to get them back out there to go home.
It's true. It's true endangered species conservation. Absolutely. 100%.
Has one ever done something that like really caught you off guard, that was like really surprising to you? You were like, wow, what are you doing?
It was at Kim's Ridley. We were doing the diving scenario. Corpus Christi was hit by a Category 4 hurricane, Hurricane Harvey, in 2017. And we were very fortunate. It was about 40 miles. Landfall was about 40 miles north of Corpus Christi. So we were on the dry side of the storm. We didn't get the brunt of it. But it's still a devastating storm, a Category 4. And so the storm had come through, and everything at the aquarium was fine. And we were kind of dusting ourselves off. And we got a call that there was a Kim's Ridley hatchling that had got caught in the storm and just couldn't, Category 4 hurricane. That's a tough thing for anybody to go through. So this turtle comes in, and we named him Champ, and he could fit in the palm of my hand. And it was a pretty cool little turtle. And turtles were not my first go at marine biology, and so Champ comes in. He's a little Kim's Ridley, most endangered species of sea turtle in the world. And so
he doesn't know how important he is.
He does not. And we weren't sure he was going to make it. I remember the veterinarians were trying to get blood samples to kind of see what we needed to do. And we really couldn't even get blood. I mean, there was a period of time we weren't even really sure if he was alive. So we get him through that kind of critical care period, and he comes to, and he starts to grow, and he's turning into this Kim's Ridley. And we're getting to that point. We need to teach him how to dive. So we bring him back over to the main aquarium from the rescue center. We bring him over here to start teaching him how to dive. And so the team is working with him to dive, and he's doing it. And you get a report, hey, this week we got down 3 feet, we got down, 10. And our goal is to always get to about 20 feet. And so I had gotten the report earlier on that Champ had made it down to 20 feet. And Champ, because it was Hurricane Harvey and the whole area was really, really suffering. I mean, it was a pretty catastrophic storm down here. Champ had made the front page of the newspaper and kind of really had become this kind of, resilient example of South Texas and Texans. And so anyways, doing good. The news media keeps up with Champ. He's kind of got this great story. So one morning I come into work, and I'm walking by the exhibit where Champ is doing his dive testing. And so I walk in, and I kid you not, I called the curator of fish and reptiles, and Champ is laying on the bottom of the exhibit, totally fine, and he is in a stare off with a lobster.
Oh, Champ, what are you doing?
Champ, what are you doing? Yeah, and Champ was probably going to win had they gone head to head, but it was, here he is. He's having no buoyancy problems whatsoever. We have completely gotten him to the point that he can completely sink down to the bottom of at least 20 feet. And Kim's Ridleys eat almost completely benthic organisms, so they're eating off the bottom. So that's a real crucial thing. And so here's this lobster that's probably twice the size of Champ, and they're not aggressive. They're just nose to nose. And I remember taking a photo of it and thinking, this is one of those moments you kind of walk into and you never thought you would see a stare down really in a lobster. And it really was kind of all this work that had gone into saving Champ and making sure that he was able to go back into the Gulf of Mexico, and he did a few weeks later, worked. And here's this moment of surrealness, and never saw it again. It was kind of this one thing. I caught it. I just happened to be here early in the morning one day, and that was it. So yeah, they do the weirdest things to surprise you.
I wonder if it was a moment of curiosity, like, oh, what are you? Or if it was a moment where he let the fame get to his head and he got a little big for his britches, and he was like, I could take you. It's okay. I'm built different.
I remember him, he was kind of sitting there real natural, and the lobster was sitting there natural too. And it was a spiny lobster, so they don't have claws, it was safe for both animals. But they're both just kind of looking at each other, not in an aggressive posture. And Champ would kind of move his head around and kind of look at him, and the lobster would move his eye. And it was one of those things like, where in the ocean would these two meet? And he's here in this specific exhibit because he needs to learn how to dive, and this is the best place that we can do that. Otherwise, he wouldn't necessarily be in there. So it was just this chance meeting of two marine creatures that, might be the one and only time that ever happens. But yeah, I think it was more just curiosity on both parts. You don't look normal, and you don't look normal as a lobster. Here we are.
They were both having the same experience that I have when I see those animals at the aquarium. Where I see, I'm like, whoa, that's cool. What is that?
Right. Yeah. What, this is one odd looking creature. And so they're just both sitting there, and both are really very colorful animals. Kim's Ridleys at that age are very colorful. Lobsters just are in general. That was quite a morning.
Game recognizing game.
Yeah, right.
Well, much like the lobster, I am enamored every time I get to see any type of sea turtle. It's always an exciting moment. I've had a chance to see green sea turtles in the wild,
awesome.
In coral reefs. It's so blissful. It is like a moment where you're like, I've been chosen. It's a Disney princess moment.
Yep, exactly. And they're peaceful. It really is a serene moment. You captured it well. Yeah.
And it feels so good, I think, largely because of how they look, which brings us to aesthetics, which is just how nice is this animal to look at, whether it is cute or pretty or cool, whatever your definition of aesthetic is. What do you give loggerheads out of 10 for aesthetics?
I'd give them a 7. I think they're not like their cousins, the greens. I think green sea turtles, the shell on a green sea turtle, and particularly when we see them come in these cold sunning events, is just absolutely stunning. And I think it's because they eat a lot of vegetables, and they're probably just, there's probably some truth in that. I think what's interesting about loggerheads are they definitely are a rougher, meatier turtle. Like alligator snapping turtle is the best way to describe it. It's exactly what they look like. So they're pretty scrappy. So
it's a combat turtle.
Yeah, that's what they're built for. Yeah, they absolutely are built to go into the ocean and do some damage. So they're not the prettiest out there, but they are certainly effective. And what we find interesting is that when you bring turtles in to the rescue program, they come with all of the creatures that live on their shells.
Oh.
And so you see barnacles, you'll see different invertebrates, whether it be copepods or amphipods, different algae. We're actually doing a study now where we're looking at epizootic diatoms, these microscopic diatoms on these turtle shells, because we can, with some specificity, determine where that turtle's been, almost as a migration tool instead of a tag. But it adds to how they look. You can, you see these turtles come in and they have all these different, some will come in, they have no barnacles, some will come in and they're covered in them. And so you never know what you're going to get with loggerhead sea turtles. But I would say they're not the prettiest out there, but they're definitely that.
Reminds me of like a world turtle. They have a whole little world on their back.
They have a whole community on their back. They absolutely do.
Oh, they're amazing. I think they're just beautiful.
Yeah. No, they are.
So if people want to see loggerheads, could they see loggerheads at the Texas State Aquarium?
We do. So today, we're in January of 2023. You could visit the Texas State Aquarium and you could see loggerhead sea turtles, green sea turtles, Kim's Ridley sea turtles, and that would be it for today. In the beginning of March, our new Wildlife Rescue Center will open. And all of the rescue work that we do now is done offsite about 2 miles away at some other facilities. And over the last year and a half, we've been building what will be the largest coastal wildlife rescue center in the country. And what's great about that is everything we've been describing about the loggerheads and the Kim's Ridleys on the rescue side of things, you'll actually now be able to see as a guest. So when you visit the aquarium after the beginning of March, you can go to the aquarium, you can see dolphins and sharks and the sea turtles that call the aquarium home. You can see all the fish, the birds, the flamingos, everything that lives here. But then when you're done here, we want you to go to the rescue center and you can see where we're really practicing all this conservation. We're practicing all this science. You can see the veterinarians doing the surgeries and getting these animals ready to return to the wild. And so you can see turtles today, but what I think is really, really exciting is you'll be able to see a lot of turtles getting ready to go back to the ocean in about 2 months at our new Wildlife Rescue Center.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's going to be amazing. And for people listening that want to, follow along like online, on social media, anything like that, where can we direct folks to?
So TexasStateAquarium.org is our website, and so that's has all the up-to-date information. It also has information on our Wildlife Rescue Center. We find that a lot of people like to track those stories. So when the next champ comes in, all of that cool stuff that we did behind the scenes, you'll now be able to watch. But we also at the new rescue center, but we'll also we put all of that online, and then all the normal social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, we do all of those, and you can kind of follow these rescue stories as they move through the process and ultimately get back to the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, amazing. And I'll have links to everything in the episode description, so people listening can just scroll down and click on through and keep up with your work at the aquarium. It's also exciting, and go see the turtles.
See the turtles. It's pretty cool. It's a unique experience to come to Texas. You could see an endangered sea turtle on the beach in trouble. You could get it to the Texas State Aquarium. In 2 months, you'll actually be able to visit every day. So the other thing about the rescue center is it's free. We're not charging tickets to go to the rescue center. We want people to see that work happening at no cost. So you could visit the next champ every day. You could watch that turtle's progress, and then when we announce the release, you could actually be there when champ goes back into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's unique to Texas. That's not something that happens in a lot of places. So it is. It's cool to come see them and get them back into the wild.
You could be the change. You can be part of the process, be part of the experience.
Well, when you visit the Texas State Aquarium and you participate in the rescue center, you are truly saving an endangered species. Absolutely, 100%.
And like how you mentioned at the beginning, how you got inspired to do your work with marine biology and conservation through visiting aquariums, right? Like seeing these animals in an accessible way that's just helping to like inspire the next generation of marine biologists and conservationists.
It is, and that's the whole point. Our wildlife rescue program, not only do we rescue and get those animals back into the wild, but it's training the next generation. And how do we train the next group of Texans to take care of Texas wildlife? Because that's one of the unique things of being in this state. And so, if we're not training the next group, inspiring the next group, what's the point? And so we've got to pass that legacy of nature in Texas down. And so that's a big focus of what we do.
Leave it better than you found it.
Absolutely. That is the plan.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Jesse. It was delightful talking to you and learning about loggerheads and your work at the Texas State Aquarium. We will catch you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellen. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening, friends. I hope that you feel the ocean calling you through the story of the loggerhead turtle. If you liked what you heard today, I hope you leave behind some kind words for us in a review on your podcast app of choice. If you want to hang out with us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. Links to everything will be in the episode description below. You can send me an email at ellen@justthezooofus.com if you have a cool animal you'd like to hear us talk about. Thank you to Maximum Fun for having us on their network alongside their other wonderful shows like the ones that you heard promos for here today. You can check those out and learn more about the network and how you can be part of supporting our show over at MaximumFun.org. Finally, we would like to thank Louis Zong for our theme music. That's all for today. See you next week. Thanks. Bye.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.